So this is a vendor view, and hopefully there's some stuff in here which is going to be either some shared pain, some thoughts about what we can do together, and just some questions which hopefully will fuel our debate in a moment. So quickly touched on, just for those of you who don't know who we are, video ad tech business, as touched on, we just sold for a lot of money, so I just popped down here on my helicopter. I'll be popping off in a minute. Want to join me back to East End? Welcome to join. We're 91% of Ad Age top 100 brands. As I said here, owned by News Corp, but that means we also work with lots of third-party publishers as well. Probably quite a few here in the room, so you can see here we're delivering for brands views across Comscore 1,000 sites. So it means I get to spend a lot of my time as a global MD with clients and asking them questions about what they want, seeing if we can supply some answers to that. So one of the real big questions that brands are struggling with is attention. You know, there's this particular word called content shock. I don't know how familiar you are with this. It was coined by a guy called Mark Schaefer a few years back, which basically says, look, guess what? There aren't a load of consumers are simply here waiting for more branded content from advertisers. What they're actually doing is they are in a sea of content coming at them from all angles, and it means they're starting to turn off. They're starting just to reel back and say, look, too much stuff, too little time. So I know you've already spoken here about ad blocking. It's not something I'm going to talk about today, you're glad to know. But actually, you know, there's quite a few issues here as well. So this is from Harvard Business School, looking at the US marketplace, and it's showing how attention to TV advertising has fallen off a cliff. And obviously, for a lot of TV advertisers and a lot of FMCGs, who certainly we get a lot of our money from, this is a really major issue. Quick question, anyone know what happened in 1992 that caused this major problem? Best guess. Sorry? The internet. Which leads quite nicely to this next one, which of course TV advertising is challenged, but also digital attention to TV advertising is also challenged. So back in 2002 when I had hair, 2.4% click-through rate. Roll the clock forward, 2015, 0.2%. In fact, you might know this, you're 475 times more likely to survive a plane crash than click on a banner ad. Bad news for anyone about to fly. So what brands have been asking us, well, with this challenge to attention, what can you do to help us? So we have a tool which we help brands understand what makes good content, and I'm talking here specifically about video content. So it's a tool called EQ, and it comes off the back of viral videos. You know, will my piece of content drive lots and lots of sharing? And generally, if you're a brand, there's two answers: no, it won't, and no, it won't. But what we found when it comes to attention, it's all about the emotions. So we find that when brands are creating highly emotive content, guess what? The consumers start to care a lot more. And it's really important for brands for this particular reason, because they don't really just care about attention. What they really care about is, what is this going to do for my advertising? You see here that video advertising that drives high levels of emotion also drive lots and lots of revenue. This is an independent stat. Ian will be glad to know it's from Nielsen. I think they did some proper checking of this. We're also asked about millennials. I don't know if I've seen a client in the last few years that haven't asked me specifically about millennials and how to engage with them. And we've done a little bit of research on that to try and understand, you know, what is it about millennials that are so different? Because I think there's a lot of cynicism about them being anti-brand and anti-advertising. And you're glad to know I won't go through all of my 10 findings, but there are a few things here when we're working with brands and they're thinking about millennials at which we try and guide them with. Which is, one is that they like control over their user experience, which is one of the reasons why, of course, they ad block. They like to be in control of advertising, and they specifically dislike forced pre-roll. In fact, we've seen from our own research that when a brand forces a millennial to watch pre-roll, it actually has a detrimental impact on their brand attributes. So you might get them to watch your content, but guess what? They don't then go on to do something you want them to do. And they're also incredibly focused on brands being authentic. So this is an audience that have the biggest bullshit deflector of any audience that we've actually worked with. And when a brand doesn't do what they want them to do, and when they lose faith in it, well, they just click away and go to their competitor. So it's really important when we're working with brands to help them understand what this authentic thing means. And it means this: be yourself. Everyone else has already taken. I think this is an Oscar Wilde saying, and we help brands understand how they can be authentic and really drive performance from their advertising. This is one I quite like, actually, because I don't know if you've been talking here about skipping and how big an issue that is to you as a publisher when your consumer decides not to watch a piece of content. It's costs you a lot more money. One of my favourite pieces about the research we've done with millennials is they suffer from something called malicious envy, which basically means any piece of video advertising that's got a happy smiley face at the start is most likely to make a millennial skip because they hate seeing happy smiley faces at the start of advertising. Malicious envy. I really like that one. Transparency. Now, I know this has been a major issue, and Mark's talked to it. There isn't a brand we're not talking to that isn't asking us these two questions. Is it viewable, and is it brand safe? I don't have a very easy answer to this, but I do completely agree that it's all about making sure you treat this seriously. So JIC-Webs, we're a member of it. If you're not, I think as Mark was already touching on, you want to be really thinking about this. We spent more money on this than probably any other bit of our tech development over the last 3 years to make sure we've got all the right kinds of independent ad tracking available to brands to make sure they know they're talking to the right person in the right place. Scale. I find this one's quite interesting for me because ultimately what brands want is actually not efficiency. What they actually want is effectiveness. You might have seen this story that P&G decided that going hyper-targeted on Facebook actually wasn't the thing for them. It actually wasn't working for them. What they actually need is mass reach. You know, I've heard this over and over again. If they wanted efficiency, they could simply halve their advertising budget. What they want is effectiveness at scale. And pretty much every FMCG that I'm talking with now thinking about this book here. So I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with this book, but if you're not, it's Byron Sharp's How Brands Grow. And you can see here what's to the right is just some of the sponsors of How Brands Grow, which means they follow this particular methodology, which basically means they're not trying to get hyper-targeted, they're trying to get reach light and non-buyers at scale. So if you're not thinking about this and how you help those FMCGs do this, then you're massively missing a trick. And easy to buy. Easy to buy means easy to buy at scale. I think what someone's already mentioned about, you know, what they love about the two big behemoths is that you can buy them globally at scale. Because if you are a busy marketeer, I mean, this is one stat that I sometimes forget, which for the average marketeer, we've already touched on here, only 20% of their day is spent on media, and that's all media. So as much as we might look like a lot of hungry mouths, that's all we are, just nipping away saying, help, I want some money. And if you look at what the two big guns have done really well, they've landed their tanks completely on the beaches of major advertisers, and often they're embedded with them. And I think this comment from Mark Pritchard is quite pithy and to the point, which is, you know, those guys are doing it right because they make it really easy for global marketeers just to buy them. So I think I was asked for a few thoughts about, you know, what we're trying to do. So there's just a few thoughts from me before I step away from the stage, which, you know, our view here is marketeers are blinded by these two big beasts. And there's a really good reason for that. This is Comscore data, and what it's showing is total views in the UK market of video advertising. So no surprise to see that YouTube and Facebook own quite a bit of it, but guess what? Us guys here in the room also own a big chunk of this piece as well. I just think this is something that marketeers often don't realise. So first off, obviously massive opportunity, but all the rich context and environment that the AOP members own should really be making a lot of noise about it. And I just don't think enough noise is being made about this. And I think the other thing that isn't being made enough noise is this. So again, independent research, this is from ThinkBox. Marketeers have a massive overestimation of how much time consumers actually spend on the big two. So what you see here is the industry estimate of what marketeers think consumers spend their time doing, and then the actual number of what consumers spend their time doing. This is watching YouTube, by the way. So you can see they estimate by 300% more than actually happens in the real world. So back to that stats, back to having independent, robust research where you can fight a fair fight, I think is super important. And collaboration, touched on already. You know, I think the next year and next couple of years, we're going to see a lot more frenemies, not enemies, if we can get that word out, where different media owners of all shapes and sizes will come together to offer reach and scale to brands to help them reach those light and non-buyers. And we've got a fairly simple view on that in our own little world, which is, you know, success is better when it's together. But lastly, one of the ways in which we're trying to do this is to offer unified demand for publishers and clients, offering marketplaces. I know there are other vendors, just to say, other vendors I'm sure other do this as well, to enable advertisers to buy what they want at scale and to offer an easy way for publishers to collaborate together. Thanks for watching.